There it is. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the All Rookie Podcast. Today is May 10th, 2023, and I'm your host, William Harris, aka William is Bill. Great to be back with you on another great episode of the All Rookie Podcast. We have another very special guest today. That's back to back
Very
for me.
special.
That's rare for me, but yeah, I got my main man with me, a man of many talents, the host of Sports Ethos Grizzlies. He's a sports ethos coordinator, all around guy, and my semi co host of Bill and D Will's fantasy YouTube show, Mr. David Williams. How you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. Good. I don't know about the special guest. You're giving me way too much credit, man. You're just here to hang out.
Well, I like to build you up and then I'm gonna tear you down. But no.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
No, but it's great to have you with me. It's always interesting talking to you, especially about the Grizzlies. You're the host of the Sports Ethos Grizzlies show. You want to tell the viewers about the show for a minute before we get into it?
Sure. Yeah. So I have a couple co-hosts, Isaac and Candace. Isaac's been with me for a while. Candace came with us early part of last season, and she's been a great asset. But we work together. We cover the Grizzlies, and it's good stuff. It's good time to be covering the Grizzlies. You draft a guy like Ja Morant, he turns into, he had kind of a rough year with all of the off the court crap. But like the NBA and Nike, they were doing a lot to push him to be kind of a face of the league, and hopefully he's able to figure out the off court stuff, because when he's on the floor, he is one of the best players in the league. So that makes it easy for us to get listeners, just because people want to know about Ja Morant. So that's a huge plus for us. We've been grinding, we've been doing it since before Ja Morant was a Grizzly. So to have somebody that has that is getting that type of recognition has really helped the show grow. You can get it on anywhere you find podcasts. It's the Sports Ethos Grizzlies podcast. You can find the show on Twitter at Ethos Grizzlies. We're doing rookie stuff right now. We during the off season, my co-host Isaac and I were both pretty big draft guys, so we get into rookie breakdowns during the off season. So if you're interested in that, if you're listening to Will's show, then you're obviously interested in the rookies. If you want to come over and listen to our stuff, and you may hear some of the same stuff, because Will's going to come on. I always have him on as a guest when we're talking about the draft. I got to give you some flowers right now, man. There was a guy last year that you were higher on than anybody else, and the beginning of the year he didn't look that great, but by the end of the year he was playing well, and that's Jaylin, Jaylin, Jaylin Williams out of Arkansas that went to OKC. I don't remember. I feel like you had him inside your top 20.
Yeah, yeah.
And then by the end of the year you see him getting all rookie team votes, and so kudos to Will. We don't all bat 1,000, but when you have a guy there were a lot of people that had him pretty far buried, and Will liked what he saw and was brave enough to put him up there and deal with the ridicule of, oh, I can't believe you got that guy that high. When you go against the grain, people tend to kind of get ruffled feathers. So there you go, man. That's all the praise you're getting from me. It's all tearing you down the rest of the show.
Right. But no, I appreciate that. Thank you, David. You do. I go out on a limb sometimes, but I just
Yeah, I
go
mean,
with
you
what
have to, man.
you got
Yeah.
to. Yeah. You never know who's gonna rise up the boards. But speaking of the Grizz, I've been with you doing these shows since y'all drafted Zaire Williams, the big shocker for you guys, and then last year you had David Roddy, Jake LaRavia.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel you should? You got a tough decision. You're gonna be picking in the early 20s.
25 is where they're sitting right
25.
now.
Okay.
Yep.
Now this is a deep class, but
It
is there
is.
anybody in the 20s you would like, or would you rather trade the pick? Y'all can go a number of different directions.
So, like, if I'm going to be 100% honest with you here, I know that this is not going to happen, but I don't want to see the Grizzlies make a single pick this year. This team has really, you go back to last year, and I feel like they were just a fraction away from being a championship team. They played Golden State tougher than anybody else last year, and they were not healthy. Desmond Bain was having back problems. Ja Morant got hurt in that series, ended up going out. The Warriors go on to win the championship. And then they triple down on youth. They go out and they bring 5 rookies to the team. You got Vince Williams, Laravia, Roddy, Kennedy Chandler, and Kenneth Lofton Jr. I like all of those guys. I didn't have a problem with them. Like when I'm doing my draft reviews of players, I'm like, okay, I like every single guy that they brought to the team, but in the position this team was in, I was like, yeah, I don't think that that's the move you should have made. But I'm not climbing. He had a plan, and he admitted as much fault as you will ever hear a GM admit whenever he made the comment, I don't know if we should have tripled down on youth, or maybe that's not how he worded. He said, should we have tripled down on youth? And then he kind of shrugged. And so, it's very rare that you see a front office guy say, okay, I think I may have screwed up here. And in the end of season media availability, I kind of felt like that's where Kleiman's going. But so, yeah, I hope they don't draft anybody. But if we're looking at 25, there's a number of guys that I like. And I'm also not naive. Like this front office has operated kind of in the same manner. So I feel like they're making the pick. I don't think that they're moving it unless they're able to go out and get like a really roster changing player. Chris Murray is a guy that I really like out of Iowa. Gives you some size. I like a lot of the things that he's able to do, but really the Grizzlies need shooting. And so if I'm setting at 25, the guys that are projected to be on the board around that area, Jordan Hawkins out of UConn, he was a high volume, like I think he was close to 40%, like 38, 39% on like 7 3-point attempts a game for UConn. And then I like Jalen Wilson out of Kansas. Jalen Wilson is a little bit bigger at 6'8". But like there are a lot of guys in this draft from that 6'6" to 6'10" range.
Yeah, it is.
So size on the wing. And if the playoffs tell you anything about the Grizzlies, you have to know that you need spacing, because after the All-Star break, when they got Luke Kennard, when Luke Kennard and Desmond Bane were on the floor together, the offensive rating was ridiculous. It was like 131, and the defensive rating did not fall off. Like the defensive rating, it's a very small sample size, but the defensive rating was very, very good with those guys on the floor, even though on paper you wouldn't think that it would be that good. But having a backdrop like Jaren Jackson kind of gives you a luxury of, okay, I can gamble a little bit on the perimeter because I've got an awesome help defender behind me. So I hope that if they do execute the draft picks, if they go after shooting, but in all honesty, if they don't pick anybody, I would be super happy.
I totally understand that, because I think you guys are in win now mode. And a lot of times when you have rookies, they're a year or two away from being true contributors. Like they might come in a spot role here or there, but for the most part on a winning team, like look at Max Christie on the Lakers, very talented. He doesn't get in the game. But I will say the big news for you guys since the playoffs, your early exit, Dillon Brooks was announced he will not return. So that slot would need to be filled. You think it should be filled with Laravia, Roddy, Zaire, or do you think a draft pick? If you had to choose between that.
If I had to choose between that, geez, dude, you're putting me on the fire. So I still have faith in Zaire Williams. His size, his athleticism, the length, he can be the wing defender that you need. I don't think he's that right now. Like Dillon Brooks, the all defensive teams were announced today. Yeah. Dillon Brooks was second team all defense, and he earned it. You could tell people that don't watch Grizzlies games, because as soon as that was announced, they're like, oh my God, Dillon Brooks made it. And it's like, check the resume, man, and they're pulling up like a handful of stats. His defensive rating was this, and he only had this many steals and this many blocks. And it's like, I mean, that's accurate. Like you look at his defensive rating, it doesn't look that great, but look who he's matched up against. He's matched up against the best wing player on the opposite team every single night. And if they don't have a dominant wing scorer, then he's matched up on their best player. Like he was guarding Karl Anthony Towns in the playoffs last year and doing a good job of it. He was guarding Anthony Davis in the playoffs this year, and you're not slowing Anthony Davis down being that small, but he was the best defender against Anthony Davis for the Grizzlies. And so he doesn't get a lot of flowers. A lot of people hate him because of the mainstream media kind of driving.
Well, he did a great job of making people hate. I think that's what he wanted.
Well, so I feel like that's super calculated because
right, I agree.
Look at the timing and when he was doing that. Ja Morant had been dealing with a lot of the off court stuff, and that there was a lot of hate, a lot of stuff coming at him. And so then I felt like Dillon, being the veteran on the team, is like, okay, I'm going to say something crazy so I can draw the attention to me. And there was definitely a disconnect. If you watched any of the videos from the end of season media availability, self-inflicted was a term that was used a number of different times, and just kind of some unneeded press. And so Dillon Brooks, the things that he said, some of the comments that he made, and just like his body language in general, you could tell that there was something between the front office and him that wasn't clicking, where maybe even the coaching staff as well. So I think I like Dillon Brooks. I think that with him gone, if you replace him with somebody that's on the roster or with a rookie, that this defense, the Grizzlies defense, is really going to struggle. And I think a lot of people don't recognize that because you see, what he was able to do. Like, he made Steph work. He made these guys that easily drop 35 points. They may get there against him, but it's going to take them 24, 25, 26 shots as opposed to doing it on 15 against other guys. And that's something, if you wanted to hate Dillon Brooks, he made plenty of plays on the floor to make that viable, and he made plenty of comments to make that viable. But if you understand the game, you know what he brought to the game, and that's going to be a big hole to fill for the Grizzlies. For
sure. But so out of the three, you're leaning towards Zaire, hoping he continues to develop.
Sure.
Now we're going to talk about 5 prospects in this draft episode that we're going to do, and it's kind of going to allude to my next point. A guy around that range is going to be Imani Bates. He could fill that role. He's a dynamic player, but probably one of the most controversial players in this draft because of his off the court situation. Y'all might lean away from him because of that, but what do you feel about Imani Bates in his game?
So, like, I'm probably higher on Imani Bates than anybody else, because I remember a couple years ago.
Hold on, wait, time out. I got him 16.
That's fine.
What you got? Like,
he has been the top of this class all throughout high school.
Yep.
Like AAU ball. He went to Memphis to play for Penny Hardaway. Love Penny Hardaway. But here's the deal. When he was in Memphis, he was not playing his natural position. Penny Hardaway wanted to make Bates a point guard because of his size, because of his athleticism, his ability to shoot. He wanted to develop his game, and he knew that if he was able to do that, that was going to make Imani unstoppable at the next level.
True.
If you watched him at Eastern Michigan, he's a bucket getter. That's what he can do. Like, are there times when he checked out at Eastern Michigan? Yeah. But point to me any of these draft prospects from 1 to 60, point any of them that you didn't see them take at least a couple plays off. It happens. And so you will not convince me that Imani Bates goes from being top of this class for years. There was what I started to say earlier. There was a mainstream media guy. He was talking about who's going to win the championship over the next 5 years. And he named off a couple teams. And his last comment was whoever drafts Imani Bates. And I was going to say it was Mark Stein that said that, but I'm not 100% sure. And I didn't go back to look it up before the show. I apologize. I was trying to get some work stuff done and got hung up. But the talent is there from him. He went to Memphis. It was not a great fit. What they tried to do did not work. And so it was kind of a bad look for him because he goes back to Eastern Michigan and it's like, but he's top 5 talent easily in this draft. And if we're talking, I think Scoot, Wibbenyama, and that may be it for me as far as guys that I'm confident could have a good NBA career. I think Amani Bates is going to be one of the best 5 players in this draft class in less than 3 years.
Wow, now that's a breaking news right there. I mean, but I agree with you that he has one of the highest potentials to be a star in this class. So that is a great point. I have not heard anyone say top 5, but he definitely is talented enough to be in that top 5. So that's and a lot of people are talking. Like ESPN has him ranked in the 50s. That was insane to me.
He's not going to drop that far, dude.
It's not possible.
He's 6'10". He can handle the ball. He needs to get some muscle, but look at his age. Like as you get older,
19, yeah.
you get in the NBA. Not everybody is Scoot, right? You look at Scoot at 19, and it's like this dude is a grown ass man already, and he's got an NBA body. That doesn't happen for every 19-year-old. Not everybody's going to develop in that manner. So like that's something that he's the outlier. So a guy with the frame of Amani Bates, you look at Brandon Ingram, he came in the league about that same size. He was still able to get buckets. Brandon Ingram has developed his game since being in the league to being one of the better players in the league. Kevin Durant, guy that could go out and get buckets. As he got stronger, Durant is one of the best players to ever lace him up. So, like, that frame can lead to success, whether he puts it together at the NBA level or not. There's always that question. You never know. There's no guarantee. We have seen plenty of number 1 picks that did not pan out in the NBA. We've seen plenty of first round picks that did not pan out in the NBA. But Amani Bates can get buckets, and guys that can get buckets will stay in the league.
Facts. Yeah, I really don't like that you are agreeing with me on this so much. So I don't know what to do with myself right now.
But yeah, sorry, we can agree on something, man. It's crazy because like I don't have my notebook here beside me, but I was listening to your show the other day and you started talking about Scoot, and I'm like, dude, there's no way that Will and I have the same take on Scoot. There's no way. And then you're going through and you're like, you get to number 3 and you're like, this is going to be the biggest shocker. And I'm like, okay, is he moving somebody up here that I haven't heard? Like, what's he? And then you said Wembanyama, and I'm like, gosh, dang it, we got the same take, and it's very similar. I don't know if it's for the same reasons, but it is what it is. We disagree on enough stuff. It's all right that we agree on a couple things.
It's nice to agree. And so, alluded to the man you just named himself, Scoot Henderson. Let's get right into him. The dynamic, incredible, electric point guard. You kind of alluded to that. I think he's number 1. You seem to be feeling the same.
Yeah, I agree that the more that I watch on him, there are things that he does in the pick and roll that there are guys that have been in the league for years that still do not have that level of vision, do not have that level of execution. If you don't play him properly in the pick and roll, he's going to score on you. And if you do defend him well, he can thread the needle to the roller and get them easy buckets. So if you pair him up with a guy, say you pair him up in a pick and roll with a guy like Anthony Davis, like a high IQ big man that can play the pick and roll really well, it's going to be deadly. And obviously Scoot's going to go near the top of the draft. So, we don't know who he's going to be paired up with just yet, but his game right now is going to translate at the NBA level. The pick and roll execution, the NBA runs a lot of pick and roll. He's going to be able to do that. He's going to be able to do that at a high level. And then on top of that, I mentioned earlier him being kind of ahead of his years in body development, like the amount of strength that he has and the ability to absorb that contact and finish through it. That is an NBA player. He's my favorite for rookie of the year. I know Wembanyama is going to get a ton of hype, but I just feel like what Scoot is going to be able to do is going to surpass what Wembanyama does year one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think there's any point guard in the NBA currently that has a body as, ready for the NBA as him. And he's 19. It's crazy. And, a lot of people make a lot of fuss about his 3-point percentage, but I think people have to remember in the G League, you're shooting at the NBA 3-point line. In college, it's a little bit closer in. So you have to factor that in as well. If you can say there's a negative about his game, it's just shooting, and that's easily improvable. His shot's not
But
broken.
he's good in the mid range. Like, and that's one of the things Isaac and I were talking about this other night. If he's playing against a drop big man, he is going to destroy drop coverage in the NBA because that 12 to 18 foot range for him is almost automatic.
Yeah.
And that's something like you see guys, Amen Thompson, let's say you had him too. And the reason that I would not have him that high on my board is because he doesn't have that mid range. Amen Thompson's stupid freak athlete, 6'7" guard skills, a lot of pluses. He's definitely a top 5 guy. But if you say, okay, do you want Amen or do you want Scoot? It's not even close. Even like just Scoot's mid range is so much better than
That's true.
Thompson. Thompson shot like, and to me, Amen Thompson, his form looks clunky right now.
I
Like
agree.
he has some work that he has to do to get there, and he could absolutely do it. There are plenty of guys that have come to the NBA and struggled early on and then figured it out and became elite shooters. Kemba Walker's a guy that I always go to. When he came out of school, he was a high volume, crappy 3-point shooter. And by the end of his career, he was deadly from 3. So you can get that development. And if Amen Thompson develops that jump shot because of that size and the strength and his ability to switch defensively, like he's going to be an extremely valuable piece. But I've seen enough guys that come in that don't have that mid range, that don't have that jump shot, that it doesn't. Ben Simmons.
Oh
Ben
gosh. Oh
Simmons,
gosh.
like what he was doing in college, what he was doing early in his career, great things. But then the NBA adjusted to him, and now he doesn't have that jump shot. What's he doing? And I know some of that is injury lately, but you can be an athletic guard with a high IQ, be able to pass the ball, have a lot of the tools that Amen Thompson has without that jumper, and the NBA will be like, "I'll dare you to shoot." Look what they were doing to Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks couldn't throw a rock in the ocean in the playoffs, and the Lakers were begging that dude to shoot. And Dylan Brooks does not lack confidence, so he's going to shoot the ball. And that's exactly what the Lakers wanted. Worked out well. They won the series.
Yeah, I think you make some great points there. I think it's going to be about confidence. And I think, at least for now, Amen, as dynamic as he plays, I think his confidence will be there. He kind of reminds me of Josh Giddey because I didn't think he would succeed because of his lack of offensive game as far as shooting and everything. And he's just done wonders for OKC. So I think Amen is like Josh Giddey times 100, basically, with his athleticism. So, it could go either way. If the confidence is not there, it could be Ben Simmons like. If it is, it could be all-star worthy. So we'll just have to see. But speaking on that note, we can transition right into his brother, another player of hot topic discussion right now. Me and you finally disagree on something major right
Yeah.
here. You love his
Yeah.
game. I'm a little less convinced, so go ahead and convince me.
Man,
All-star
but
conference.
between the brothers, like it shocked me that you had Amen so high and had his brother so far down because there are things that Amen definitely does, but athleticism, Amen's vertical is 40-inch, as yours vertical is 38-inch. So not a huge. Both of those guys are crazy freak athletes. Azir's jump shot is better. His percentages are better. His form looks better. The stroke is smoother. And he's a guy that can guard 1 through 4. Right now, coming in the league, there's going to be some 4s that would bully ball him, but I would be fine if he's out there on the floor because of his defensive ability. And I think that his shot is good enough right now in a limited role. Typically, what you see from a rookie, unless they just go to an absolutely garbage team, they're not relied upon on the offensive end. So it would give him time to develop that shot even more. And his shot is far better than his brother's right now. And he still has some of the playmaking tools. Like obviously, Amen's not ranked above him for no reason because of the athleticism, the vision, his ability to pass the ball. But Azure has showed very similar attributes on the floor to his brother with a better shot.
It's possible, his 3-point percentage is 30. His brother was 25. But I still think he's raw offensively. I think it will help a man that he has been playing point guard pretty much his whole career. So even if you can't shoot as well, he can get to the rack and distribute. If you're coming in as a shooting guard, it's kind of like you're going to have to fit in a certain spot. You're not going to be able to create for yourself as much. And I really think Asar is going to depend on what team he goes to. He could flourish if he goes to the right team. If he goes to the wrong team, I think he could get lost in the shuffle. But you have him in the top 5? Because I think you
Yeah, I think if you're gonna have a man top 5, you gotta have him right there too. Like, and that is after kind of talking to you a little bit, I get where you see kind of the separation. You and I have had conversations off air of where you feel like A-Man can be franchise changing player and Azure is just going to be more of a maybe a high level or elite role player type. And if you're taking a lottery player, you want to take that superstar swing upside. But I think that because the tools are so similar, same frame, like one is like 6'7", 195, Amen 6'7", 195, as there is 6'7", 205. Like that, there are not a ton of differences in the frame from these guys, and they're not the same player. So I'm not on here trying to convince you that they're the same player, because when you watch the film from these guys, you can see the differences in their game. But at the next level, being able to shoot the ball is going to be something that's extremely important. And I think that is somewhere that Amen is behind. And he's going to have some catching up to do. I don't have a problem with a team taking him in the top 5 because of that elite athleticism, his vision, his ability. Like live dribble passing is something I think that gets overlooked a lot, but there are a lot of guys that are not good live dribble passers and turn the ball over a lot because of that. And both of these guys are really good live dribble passers. Amen Thompson is probably the best live dribble passer in this draft.
Okay. Good. All good points. All good points. And that's why I have you on the show. This is David Williams. Tell your Twitter one more time before we get into the next.
Oh yeah, I didn't even. Yeah, I talked about the show. I didn't talk. I'm at NBA D Will 21. Yeah, NBA DWIL 21. Yep.
You can see all the knowledge he's filled with, and it's host of the Sports Ethos Grizzlies. And we got 2 prospects left to talk about. This is a guy that's rarely talked about, but one of my favorite prospects. I thought he could have came out last year. Marcus Sasser, underrated point guard from Houston, incredible player, but he's a senior. You know how these draft critics are about seniors. How do you feel about Marcus Sasser?
And you already know how I feel about Sasser. He is a guy like that's what kills me when you look at we were talking about the guys that would be available at 25. Jalen Wilson, 6'8", with the tools that he has. If he was 19 years old,
right,
he'd be a top 10 prospect. But because he's a junior, he's further down the board. And it's I don't know, man. Just because a kid is 19 years old doesn't mean that you're going to get him in there and get him developed fast enough that he's going to bring you the things that you expect. When this kid is a junior, he's played 3 years of college ball. He's going to be more NBA ready. And I don't even have his age up. What is it? Wilson is, do you know how old he is, Will?
Wilson?
Yeah, Jalen Wilson out of Kansas.
He's 22.
So
him 22, and Sasser are both 22.
22 versus 19. the average retirement age for the NBA is north of 36 years old. At 22, you're getting 14 years out of a guy. If you get a guy that can come into the league and have a 14-year career in the late lottery or middle part of the first round, that's a win. And it just it blows my mind. I think that you look at what the Grizzlies have done. Look at Xavier Tillman, Brandon Clark, Desmond Bain. All of those guys were older guys that the Grizzlies went out and drafted, and they've got to the league and they've been able to play. And that is a large part as to why the Grizzlies have been a playoff team over the last few years, because they're drafting older guys.
True.
They take a swing with Zaire Williams. You see him at the end of his rookie season kind of be, okay, this is what we were hoping for. And then he has a huge regression this year. Some of that was injuries, but that's what you get. Like with a 19-year-old, you go back and you look at some of the guys. Jermaine O'Neal is a guy that came into the league straight out of high school, and he was garbage in Portland. He gets moved to Indiana, and he turns into an all-star. You know, he plays on the teams in Indiana that probably win a title if Michael Jordan isn't in the NBA. You know, so you never know how long it's going to take for a guy to develop. And Marcus Sasser is a guy that is further down. His size kind of, you can hold that against him a little bit at, 6'2". I've seen different measurements on him, but I think 6'2" is probably right. Wouldn't you say? Because
Yeah,
I've seen 6'3".
We'll know. A lot of the teams fudge numbers anyway. We'll know for sure at the combine. But yeah, 6'2" right now.
Yeah, but you just look at the thing that I like about Sasser on that Houston team. You saw him with the ball in his hand a lot. He made smart plays, man. He didn't turn the ball over much. He's able to shoot the ball well from three, 38% three-point shooter. And I agree with you. He could have came out last year. He's probably further down in the draft last year than he is this year if he comes out. But he could have came out last year ready to play and contributed year one. And he's another guy. The size kind of puts me off on him a little bit, because you don't want to like John Moran is not a big guard, and I wouldn't necessarily want to see Sasser and Moran out there at the same time, because I think that would be kind of tough defensively for the Grizzlies. But I also, if they happen to move on from Tyus Jones and they maintain that pick number 25 and he's there, I'm not mad at it.
Because what's Tyus Jones? Is he even 6 foot?
Jones is 6'2", I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's north of 6 foot, but he's not a big guard by any means. And Jones is a good defender. And I think that Sasser is probably going to be a better defender right out of the gate than Morant is, even though Morant you saw him give a little more effort last year, but he's not a great defender. There's no two ways about that. He's just not. That's the weakest part of his game.
Yeah. That's a good point. Good point. I was gonna say something about Sasser, and it just slipped my mind, but we can move on to the next process. But yeah, don't be greedy, okay? You can't have all these guys in Memphis, all right?
I know I can't, man. And I told you at the beginning of the show, if they don't draft anybody, I'm gonna be happy, because that means that they move the pick to try and upgrade the roster. So there are plenty of teams out there that are kind of semi rebuilding. They got some pieces that I would love to see the Grizzlies go after. Cam Johnson in Brooklyn, Dorian Finney-Smith in Brooklyn, Royce O'Neal in Brooklyn. Like Brooklyn has a lot of, if the Grizzlies can make a move to get any combination of two of those three guys, I would be happy. Because that's what they need. They need guys that can play defense and know that they're a role player. That's what they need.
So Dillon Brooks. That's
what no, Dillon Brooks doesn't know that he's a role player.
That's true.
He doesn't. And so at the end of season media availability, one of the comments that he made, dude, I was blown away. I couldn't believe it. I was sitting there in the room and he's like, somebody asked him about him struggling in the playoffs, and he's like, yeah, I was kind of hoping that they would run a few sets for me so I could get a rhythm, because I just couldn't get anything going. But, it wasn't in the cards for our team. And I'm like,
yeah, you're right.
Bro, you took 15 shots a game.
Oh, man.
And you shot like 12%. Like they didn't need to run anything for you. And
Yeah.
that's yeah,
Irrational confidence. That's what they say.
it
I,
is,
I
man.
remember what I was going to say now about Sasha being 22 and some of the guys being 19. You know, you can draft a 19-year-old, and by the time they are good enough to contribute, they could be on the next contract on the next team. So you really wasting 3 years sometimes with a developmental player when you have a 22-year-old ready to go. So a lot of people think that age is a bad thing, but I think the perfect example is Bane, like you talked about. He came in pretty much ready to go. You can be
Yeah.
drafting a prospect and never even get to experience the good parts of their career. But so now let's go to the final prospect, Leonard Miller, one of my favorites, G League Ignite, rising star, 19 years old, can do it all with great size, great height. What do you think about Leonard Miller?
Hold on. We're gonna do this entire show and not really talk about Victor. We're just gonna say we
Well, look,
both
you
like
had
we like
five
Scoot.
guys you wanted to hit on, so
Oh,
we could
no,
touch
no.
on Victor at the
Yeah,
end.
I just kind of mentioned. You asked me if there were some guys. So Leonard Miller was a guy that and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but he was getting some buzz last year,
Yeah,
but it was more than likely going to be second round. And so he decides not to declare or kind of withdraws his name from the draft and he goes back and he plays and done himself some good. Like,
a
you
lot
know,
of good.
he's going in the first round because of that size. Like there's a lot of stuff that he brings to the floor that any NBA team needs. It's all about, okay, is Leonard Miller going to accept a role? Like what is Leonard Miller's job going to be at the next level? And at 6'10, you're like, okay, what's happening? Is he going to be a big? Is he going to be a wing? And I don't. I think right now it could kind of go either way. Like, would you agree with that? Like, because of the stuff that I've watched with him, his foot speed, his lateral movement, I think that he can guard multiple positions right
Yeah,
off the bat.
yeah.
You know, I think it's going to kind of be matchup dependent, right? It's going to be um who's he matched up against at 18-11. It's like 6'10. Okay, 18-11 for the G League. All right, he's a big, but this kid can move his feet, and so
Yeah, again.
that's like the Grizzlies lack front court depth, and that's one of the reasons that I kind of looked at him. Aldama just needs to get stronger. He was terrible in the playoffs. He kind of came around a little bit late, but it was too little, too late. And I'm concerned because I don't know what they're gonna do there in the postseason media availability. There were questions about that, and it really seemed to me like they were going to keep it internal. You know, that they converted Kenneth Lofton Jr. to a primary contract on the roster. Should have happened a long time ago. There are politics involved in basketball. There are politics involved in life. And the reason that he was on that two-way for as long as he was simply politics. That's all it was.
Because he was
And
undrafted.
yeah, that's it, man. Like there's no way in the beginning of the season, as bad as David Roddy was playing early on, that you can tell me David Roddy brought more to this team than what Kenneth Lofton Jr. could have. You won't convince me of it. It's not the truth. Kenneth Lofton Jr. was down there destroying folks in the G League. David Roddy was up here looking like he should be in the G League. And it panned out. Roddy ended up playing some playoff minutes, some meaningful playoff minutes for the Grizzlies. But the only reason that Roddy was still up here and not in the G League and Kenneth Lofton Jr. was in the G League instead of being on the main roster is because Lofton Jr. was undrafted and David Roddy was a first round pick. So they have this time, they have this, or not time, they have this money invested in Roddy. And so he's going to be up on the main roster. But yeah, I like Leonard Miller. I really, dude, I didn't prepare a whole lot. Like I don't have a lot of notes on Miller. Like I've watched film on him and I really like his game and what he's, you know, what he's able to do. But I figured that we were talking about Victor. Like I listed a few guys and I think Miller was the last one that I sent you. So
Yeah.
I'm a little unprepared and I apologize. I hate that because typically I try
Well, we're
to
gonna
make
end the
sure I have a
show,
whole show
guys. All
ready.
right now.
Yeah. Send me, don't invite me back. I'm not ready.
No, but I do love Leonard Miller. I can't wait for the results of the lottery to come in. That'll be next week. And that's going to determine a lot of things. And we're going to see where we can slot guys and all that good stuff. But if you want to talk about the most popular player in the draft, come on, let's do it. Save the best for last. Victor Wembanyama, the Frenchman. Let's go.
So you'll have to remind me what was your reason for having him third? What are your concerns for him?
All right. There's a lot of concerns. First of all, there's no one to compare him to except for Bol, probably. When I watched the tape of him, I saw images of Yao Ming. Now, obviously, Yao Ming was a post player. Victor can do a little bit of post, a little bit of wing, but that worked pretty well. But he ended his career with a foot injury. So Bobo, full of injuries with the foot. He's back now, but he's playing limited minutes, 20, 25 minutes per game. Is Victor going to be in that situation where he's going to have to play limited minutes to be protected? Or I think it's highly unlikely he's just come out the gates and be able to play 35 minutes a game at that frame. I don't think someone's body, 7'5", 220 pounds, is meant for running up and down the court like a guard. There's other things, but that's the main thing.
Yeah, and injuries are not a concern for me. He's playing north of 30 minutes where he's at right now. By the time they finish the playoffs and everything, he's going to be right around, I had it written down, but I think it's close to the 50 game mark. I understand 50 games that's not 82. And I understand that the league that he's in is not the NBA, but I just there have been bigs that I've been concerned with injuries, but I couldn't find anything like rolled ankle stuff. Like I haven't seen a big injury from him. If you go back and you look and try to find injuries, like his stuff has all been minor. So the injuries are not what concerns me. What concerns me is people see this size and they see these shots and they see, oh, he's doing this and he's doing that. But they don't want to talk about the fact that he's not a guard. He's averaging almost 3 turnovers a game. And the fact that he's making some very, very poor decisions to make those 3 turnovers a game. You go and you watch film of him, and I'm not talking about highlights because you're not going to see this stuff in the highlights. But if you go, you can find full game clips of Wembanyama playing, and you can see him making passes that are ill-advised. Some of that is youth, and he will grow out of that. But I think that you see a 7'3" guy shooting a 27, 28-foot three and knocking it down. It's like, oh, he's going to be a knockdown shooter. Bro shooting 28%. Like right. There are a lot of tools. He moves his feet way better than almost anybody his size. I would say a good comparison, honestly, like is Kristaps. I think that that's a good comparison for him because Kristaps moves his feet very well for a guy that size. I think Wembanyama does the same. He can handle the ball very well for a guy his size. Is that going to translate into the NBA? Is his handle going to be tight enough for the NBA? That I don't know. That's something the level of defenders he's going to play against are going to be better. The schemes that he's going to face are going to be better. There are going to be things that are adjusted to make him work harder at the NBA level. And so, like it drives me nuts. I've listened to a lot of people talk about Wembanyama and they always want to gas him up. Like, oh, he's got this and he's got that. But when you go and you talk about the negative on him, they give you pushback on it. And it's like, man, if you're going to only evaluate a prospect based on the things that they're doing good, you're not doing your job right. Yeah. Like you're not giving a proper evaluation. Like right. If you want to talk about the 8-foot wingspan and the fact that he can block you from the 3-point line when you're at the basket because he's so freaking long, like that's a huge plus. Yeah, like he moves his feet well. He gets beat on the defensive end, but because of that length, he can make up for it. And so is a half-second speed difference in the NBA going to cause him to miss those blocks, or is he going to be able to adapt to it? And because of his athleticism, because of what he can do, I think that you will see him adapt to it, but I just don't know that it's going to be something straight out of the gate. You're going to see him come out like guns blazing, dominating people, like what the majority of people that are talking about Wembanyama are expecting.
Yeah, I mean, you saw Scoot Henderson have his way with him in the game they played. You know, that was like the first real NBA type of talent, and Scoot didn't really have any problems with him. But you know,
Yeah, but I mean that's you're not if you're a coach, you don't want Wembanyama switching on a guard. Like he
oh
moves
yeah,
his feet
definitely,
well. He moves his feet well, but Scoot is faster than probably 90% of the guards in the league right now.
that's
And
true.
so I like, yeah, that's kind of a fair because we know that Scoot is NBA talent, but also there's only a handful of people in the NBA that have the kind of speed and the handle that Scoot has. So it's not like Victor's going to get switched on one of those guys every night because there's not one of those guys on every team.
That's very true. But as far as injuries with Wemby, he has already suffered some injuries that don't get talked about. He's suffered a fibula stress fracture, a scapula contusion, an issue affecting a muscle in his back as well. I think one of the years he missed a year, but it wasn't this year or last year. So that stuff doesn't get talked about. And like clearly it's not a concern right now, but you know, things will happen, can happen, won't happen. I hope he doesn't get injured. I hope he has a Tim Duncan type of career. But you named a lot of the risks that I have for him and worries. I think a lot of times, you know, if he's gonna be a big, he had trouble backing down guys in the international league. So that's gonna be even tougher in the NBA, obviously. You know, like you mentioned with the handle, he's not going to be playing around out there with the ball like that in the NBA. I mean, try that against Pat Bev one time. You're going to see what's going to
Yeah.
happen. So, I mean, I think he's going to have to go to the right situation as well. It seemed like when he was playing internationally, a lot of times he's just out there trying stuff to prepare for the NBA to see what he can do. And he has the liberty to do that because I mean, he's the man over there. But when you get to the NBA, you're going to have to step it up, show improve, run plays, and fit in. And if he does that and stays healthy, he can be an all-star type of player. But I think they're setting him up for failure, talking about he's the best prospect since, or he's better than LeBron coming out. Like that's just you don't say that about people.
Yeah, I mean that's really tough to say, but I think that based off of what he can do on the floor, it's one of those things with what you see already and what typically happens because Wibanyama is what is he? He's not 20 yet, is he? He's 19.
I got his age right here,
So yeah,
19. Yeah.
he's not. He's gonna be for half of next season. He's still gonna be 19 years old. He won't turn 20 till the middle part of his first season in the NBA. And you watch like guys don't hit their prime until 25 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, all right, what he's doing now is already at an extremely high level. If he stays healthy and he puts all of this together and we get to his prime, I can see the argument where it's like, okay, this kid could possibly be one of the best players to ever do it because of the tools that he has. But there's a lot of miles between now and then. There's a lot of time between now and then. And there's a lot of ifs between now and then. The speed of the game, there's a lot of things that can change for him. So I love him. I love what he's able to do and the tools that he has. But I just think that a lot of times folks get overhyped and
Yeah.
it's one of those things. Chet got a lot of praise last year. I know that you were not exactly a huge fan of Chet, and that's okay. Like look, year one, Chet gets a season-ending injury, or was that the Wembanyama tank? Can you like? I'm gonna back up. Just can you imagine if OKC wins this lottery and they end up
Oh
with
my God.
Wembanyama?
Oh my
Like
God.
what the length that they could run out there at one time?
That would be
It'd be
crazy.
stupid. Like you run Shea would be your smallest player. Shea,
Yeah.
Giddy, Poku, Chet, and Wibanyama.
Poku
Like,
is gonna be off the team, but but
yeah, I mean he might. I'm just throwing it out there
yeah,
for length though, man. Like
yeah.
it would just be dumb.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I appreciate you having me on, man. Like I like Wembanyama, and me saying that I would take Scoot over Wembanyama is not necessarily a knock on Wembanyama. I'm just that confident that Scoot is going to be an all-star or better type player.
Yeah, and I have to say, I mean, that's how you know you're an unbiased recruiter scouter, because last year, even before this season started, you were bigging me up on, I mean, talking me up about Chet, but you were like, man, when you see Wembanyama, it's like he is incredible. He's gonna be the number one. And like now that you came into it, you're like, you're not just sticking with that, You're saying, okay, Scoot is incredible, so I'm gonna put him one, Victor two. And I mean, you have to change. You can't just stick on something if things change. They're fluid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that any other draft year, like the 3 previous years and probably for 3 years after, if Scoot was a part of those draft classes, that he'd go number one hands down. And that's, there's talks that he may not go number two, and I think a lot of that would depend on who lands the number two pick.
Yeah,
But I will say this: if you have the number two pick and you go somewhere other than Scoot, I think that you're making a mistake.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, well, I think we just about covered everything. That's the talk on Victor Wembanyama. It's going to be interesting, like I said, to see who's going to get the first pick. But you guys are locked in at 25.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're going to be waiting to see what my squad, the Hornets, do and see if we get the top pick or not. But yeah, we probably would pass on Scoot, wouldn't we? If we had the number two, I don't know. Would he play with LaMelo? That would be tough. Tough to pass
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. I mean, it's so. What do you do? Like, if you
Yeah.
so what are you gonna? You have Amen as your number two. Are you taking Amen? Because like Amen can't shoot. You can't play LaMelo and Amen together. So then what do? Do you go Brandon Miller? You got
Well, you're saying, well, if
Cam
we have
Whitmore.
this, if we have the second pick, we're taking
Yeah.
Scoot or Wemby.
Well, it won't be or Wimby. Wimby's going number one. There's no way he doesn't go number
Okay,
one. Like
okay. So we would
he's
just take Scoot if we had number two. But if we had number three, I think we go Brandon Miller.
I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, when the lottery is issued, you're gonna see Victor Wembanyama more than likely number one on my board if a team already has a point guard. So I'm not just gonna stick to my big board. I'm gonna still try to make it fit. You know what I mean? So if the Hornets get the first pick, I'm gonna mock them Victor Wembanyama. So it's fluid. We'll
Well,
see.
I think big board versus mock drafts is different, right? Like
Yeah,
big board is like talent wise, where do I think this player ranks
exactly.
versus a mock draft is what do I think that these guys are going to do.
Right.
And so for me, even when we find out what the lottery is, I still think I'm still confident that Scoot is going to have the type of career where he's going to be a franchise changing player.
For
And so
sure.
I still like him first, but I don't think that there's any way that anybody doesn't take Wembanyama one.
Yeah, because they'll be scared. They'll be scared to not do it. So, but Victor, and there's some other French players that are going to be playing as the draft is happening. So they're going to be in their championship and everything, as long as they keep winning. So that's going to be interesting as well. Everyone else's season is over, so there still is potential for injury or anything like that. Hopefully not, but they are still playing right now.
Sam Bowie, Greg Oden. You get Sam Bowie before Jordan, Greg Oden before Kevin Durant. Just because the guy's got a whole lot of hype doesn't mean that he's going to be better.
You said it, not me, but we're right there together on that. But we're hoping that it all works out for everyone. Everyone in this class stays healthy, including Dariq Whitehead. I'm just going to throw this in there. He's going to have foot surgery, unfortunately, very high on him, but he'll be ready for the season. So thank you once again. Go ahead. What you
Because
got?
of that injury, he falls to 25. Come on to Memphis.
Hey, yeah,
I'll
that would
take
be
that
good.
talent. That'd be crazy talent
Yeah,
at
yeah.
25
And it
for
might
sure.
happen too.
Yeah.
It might happen. But thank you so much for joining me, David Williams. Tell them your Twitter, your show one more time before we get out of here.
You got the Twitter right up there on the screen for him at NBA DWill21. I host the Ethos Grizzlies podcast. The show is at Ethos Grizzlies. Find us anywhere you get podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, iHeart, Spotify, anywhere. If you want to listen to Grizzlies talk, specifically in the off season, we are talking about guys that the Grizzlies are working out, but we're doing draft breakdowns. So come and check us out. We appreciate anybody that spends time with us, even though I can't talk all the time.
And it's a great show. You know, I think they just announced that you guys are the second ranked show in the whole Sports Ethos net. So get those numbers up for Sports Ethos Grizzlies. Follow me, of course, subscribe, comment the All Rookie Podcast. You got anything before we get out of here?
That's it, man.
All right, I'll see you on your show next time. We out of here. Peace.